For my capstone project, I decided to create an interactive map of the Vancouver Skytrain network across the city. So this includes the Expo, the Millennium, and the Canada line. And to do this, I created a resistor ladder and connected all of my buttons, for all 53 stops to my resistor ladder, and that resistor ladder was then connected to my Arduino, which ultimately allows me to be able to encode all those buttons and decide which samples I want for each station. So this is just a top-down view of my project. As you can see, I have the three lines here, the Expo line, the Millennium line, and the Canada line. So all of these were, this map was chosen specifically because it had all of these lines, but also I wanted to keep it relatively decluttered and very minimalist with what was actually going on. Yeah, this board is actually slightly raised on legs, and so with each press of the button, what would happen is that sound and visuals would be triggered for each one. So this is just a vinyl banner, but the buttons are sitting underneath, and the wiring goes through the back here. So this wiring, there are 53 stops total on the Skytrain, on the entire Skytrain network. So this is the result of wiring for all 53 of them. So each button had the ground and the power wires soldered onto them, and the wires are all going to this resistor ladder that was built. So it might be a little bit harder to see, but these are the resistors that were chosen. So they were chosen based on some calculated values that were helpfully done by Dr. Bob and Daniel. So I will list what all of those values were for each one. Each of the wires has been soldered onto the specific part of the resistor ladder that it would correspond to. And so that way I can make sure that my buttons are all individually managed and independent of each other when I'm doing this. So yeah, and in this case it's my Arduino, and this I plug into my computer. Yeah. Some of my challenges in this project, the first one was the soldering. I faced some difficulties with that, especially in the later stages when I was soldering onto the resistor ladder. So each resistor is very tiny, kind of, it's one looks like this. Getting them onto this resistor ladder, as well as soldering onto the back of the board, was a challenge, especially with making sure that they did not touch each other if they were on different levels. Otherwise they would be cross-talking. So there was a lot of fixing up of that during the second half. Oddly enough, I didn't experience too much challenges soldering the first time, soldering the leads onto my buttons, but yes, this was a bit more delicate, and I kept pulling off the annular copper rings on this. So something I learned was to how to make sure that the actual wires were both sitting nicely on this thing, and also using all the soldering tools efficiently and productively to make them work the way I wanted to. The second challenge I faced was trying to time manage and make sure that everything was done in time. So considering the deadlines I had, there were some moments where things had to be either cut or rescaled and repurposed to fit what I wanted to accomplish. So that included, this mainly sort of pertained to collecting and editing my visual samples, especially I think the actual building part took longer than I was thinking in my head, especially with trying to fix the resistor ladder. Dr. Bob and Daniel helped significantly with that. And something else I forgot to mention was I did have to rebuild one of the ladders. So in total I have six different ladders. So the first 5 cover my 50 stops, and then the 6th one is for the extra 3 stops to make 53 stations total, 53 buttons. So this ladder right here, where there is no wires connected to it, is where I had to kind of, not use that one basically because I shorted it. So there's a new one down here that I built after that fact. And yes. For this project, I got to learn a lot of different things in order to build it and make it work. So it was a great learning experience all in all. And I really want to thank Dr. Bob and Dr. Hamill for making this program possible. And especially thank you to Dr. Bob for helping me make my project happen and being very patient with my learning. I appreciated it very much. And yeah, so moving forward with this project, I would love to be able to do a couple of things I would have liked to have done had I had more time. Firstly, I would maybe put in LED lights that would also be triggered with each press of the button at each station. Just generally, I would like to have more sort of flashy components to add to it so that the button press really, the effect of it is really seen. And maybe more signage. So I was considering on attaching an Arduino LED board to the top that would also display the station name. And another thing I was considering and might continue to figure out how I could make it work is rather than printing my map, I would really like to draw it somehow, and maybe incorporate some electrical circuitry into that as well, or something that is of conductive material, which yeah, something with circuit paint, which I had originally been considering, and yeah, using that to draw the lines. Yeah, thank you so much for watching this video about my capstone.